It's the best and the worst things in life.
It is. It really is. And I am not even close to being a guru at it.
Well, if ever you need help, you can always call me. I'm happy to help. That's what I do for
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to start this simply by me asking you what your name, for you to tell us your name and share anything about us you want us to know so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. Sure.
Your name?
My name is Amy Lynch. I am a teacher for Baltimore City Public Schools. I've been a teacher for 19 years. And that's about it.
Are you married?
I am divorcing.
Do you have children?
No children.
Okay. And Maryland, you teach there.
Yes, I teach in Baltimore City. Yeah.
Baltimore City. Have you had any experience teaching anywhere else?
I was in North Carolina in the Chapel Hill school system for a few years while I was living there.
Can you tell us the differences in the two school systems, Baltimore and North Carolina?
So in Baltimore, it's a completely urban school district. I've taught in 2 schools there. No, I'm sorry, 3 schools there. And it lacks some resources. We don't have money for a lot of things. They're kind of behind on technology, and you know, we don't have a lot of that. When I was in Chapel Hill, one of the most marked differences was the technology and the availability of technology, but also the help you could get as far as other people who worked in the school. There were assistants to help in the classroom. There was a psychologist, and there was and the school nurse was extremely involved with the community, which was wonderful. There were just a lot of extras. And so I moved from Baltimore to Chapel Hill and couldn't believe it. Just couldn't get over how much there was. And then moved back to Baltimore and realized just how much there had been in Chapel Hill and how there's such a disparity between those 2 school districts.
And is the racial makeup the same in both school districts?
No. The Chapel Hill, the school I worked in Chapel Hill was much more diverse. Probably, and I don't know the numbers, but probably, you know, 60 or 70% white, I don't know, 20% African-American, and 10%. We had some Korean refugees, which was really neat because they came from a completely different place. And in Baltimore City, it's where I've always taught is 100% African-American. And there are schools that are more diverse, but I've never worked in those.
100% African-American?
100%. 100%.
And what about the faculty and the administrators? What's that makeup?
In both schools, I've had African-American principals. And then during my school time in one of the schools, the principal retired and we got a new principal, and she was white. As far as the staff, I would say it's as close to 50-50 as I could tell you between white and African-American. At the school I'm at right now, we have a few teachers from Thailand. But otherwise, I think at this school, you'd say pretty close to 50-50 white African-American.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, and please don't take any offense to this. How do you think white teachers do when the predominant number of their students are Black and brown. You know, my husband is a third grade teacher, and I ask him
Mhm,
a question all the time, and he's
mhm.
always said the same response: white people can teach Black children, they just need to know how and know what life is like. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's twofold, actually. I do think white teachers can teach Black and brown children. Um, One of the first things you have to do, though, is check your white privilege in the sense of um, these students and their parents come with issues that you haven't dealt with. Now, they know a lot that you don't know,
Right.
but also have lived lives that are different. So you have to be very cognizant of that. I think that also you have to learn to be very respectful of the culture that you are working with. And I'll say that the two schools that I've worked at the longest, the culture of the schools were completely different also. So I'm not just talking about the difference between white and African American, but also the community of the school. And I think the other issue, or the other issue is the wrong word, the other difference is um, you can't assume, and this is more of an urban to suburban thing that I've noticed, but you can't assume that children who grow up in row houses and places like that, that they know what a shed is.
Mhm.
Like there was a reading test when I taught kindergarten, and the child was supposed to say something like, the bike was in the shed. But there was no picture of a shed. So there was no, they couldn't catch that concept. And they really truly did not know what a shed was. And that's something that I think a grand majority of white teachers would be like, how do you not know what a shed is, you know? And I do think that that's also urban versus suburban.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as a white teacher of all African American kids, I think that it's just, you just have to be aware. You just have to, you just have to be aware. And especially dealing with parents and especially talking to older students. I've always taught fourth and below, but I've been in schools that have a middle school also. And I think especially as fifth, sixth, seventh graders, as children mature, they see a lot more of the world and they understand a whole lot more. And their lives have simply been longer, but they've experienced so much more. And I think that's where you have to just understand and work to not be presumptuous.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm really asking, and I'll tell you a story. My husband and my son both were teaching at FPG. I don't know if you know of that school, but he's teaching at FPG.
Oh, that's where I worked. Yeah.
Okay. I had been asked to proctor or do something one day there. And I was, the courtyard away from, once you go up to the office and then the courtyard on the way to the classroom. There was a white teacher and she had, probably 20, 30 students falling behind her. And there was one Black girl in the line who was just all over the place. She was moving, she was dancing, she was doing all of this. And so the teacher told her, if you don't behave, I'm gonna have to send you to the office. Well, of course, she continued moving. And we don't know whether that's, something, her physical makeup, whether there's some reason why she's fidgety,
Sure.
But in front of all of those students, she told her, if you can't behave, I'm going to put you at the back of the line. Now, most people would say, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine, because she's misbehaving. She said, I'm going to put you at the back of the line. But when you look at it in context, what did that tell that little girl, about who she was? Because we don't know why she was fidgeting. The teacher never asked her why. She just kept telling her to stop. And so there it is. I proctored exam, integrate exams at a school here, and so the administration hadn't gotten all the materials to the teachers and told everybody where they're going to be in terms of classrooms and things. And there was a white woman that I was a proctor for her class, and she had about, I'd say, 4 Mexican or Hispanic students and about 6 Black students. And she stands
Oh,
up
I'm
there.
sorry. I don't know where you went. Oh, no.
What? I see you. I hear you.
You do?
Yeah.
See you. Okay. No, I don't see you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
For the purpose of this, it's not matter. It does not matter if you don't see me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, as long as you're fine, then that's okay.
Okay. So back to the story. So
Sorry.
about 4 Hispanic students or some brown group of students, and then about 5 or 6 Black students. And so let's just say the exams are supposed to start at 9 a.m. So by 9 a.m. they had not started. And so the teacher stands up in the room, and she stands between the Black group and the brown group, and she says, "You are not smart enough to take my exam, so we're waiting for the administration to get you and put you somewhere else." And every time I think about that, and Skip, I tell Skip about it, he said it was awful, and I did tell the principal what I had heard.
Yeah.
But that's why it always leads me to ask the questions: can white faculty teach Black and brown children? Because as you said, you don't have the same experiences. You have had white privilege, so you have benefited, and you don't have to worry about it. But when you're a Black or brown child, and I think you could probably say this as well, by the time most Black and brown children get to middle school, they're no longer interested in school. School becomes a
I would agree with that completely.
it becomes a place where they can go see their friends. It's hang out with their friends, but it's not there for the academics. And so one of the things I think is really subtle racism is they put the scores in public domain, right? So if you pick a school, let's say FPG for argument's sake, and say, our test scores are down because, the Black students only scored 1 or 2s. And same thing in any school. That enforces the belief that Black and brown people are not very smart. And I will say, speaking for me, I did not get my doctorate until 2016. I started in 2012 and I was complete by 2016. Only 2 people out of a class of 30 completed their doctorate. 2. I was one of those 2. And I can't tell you how many times those people told me I was not going to be able to complete. But
I'm sure. Yeah.
What Black and brown children need more than anything else is not about race, but it's about encouragement and support. Telling them they did a good job, asking them, what did they do over the weekend, engaging them in a way that they feel like they matter. Because right now, many Black and brown children do not feel like they matter. And so what you have high crime because I can't get a job. I don't have good education. I've been sent to the principal office so much. I've lost so much opportunity. Everybody in my house is struggling just to eat and keep utilities on. People justify crime. I do not. But I do understand if I was hungry, what else could I do?
Right.
I can't go next door to your house and say, Amy, will you give me food for my whole family? And you might give it, but you're not going to do that every single day.
Every day, yeah.
After a while, it's going to get old, and you're like, okay, now you guys are going to have to figure out something for yourself. So I think that for me, I'm not sure I'm pro or con against segregation and integration, because in desegregation, Black children saw Black teachers, Black doctors, Black lawyers, Black. And so they aspired. And if you look at the generation that came from slavery and Jim Crow, they made amazing advancements to grow and to become productive citizens. Where if you look at where we are, you can go to the 20th century to now, Black people still, and brown people too, still struggle to find their voice in the larger society, if that makes sense.
No, there you are. No, and I agree completely. I mean, as far as the little girl who was moving around, I wouldn't personally care if that's just wrong. That's just wrong for a child. But I completely understand the additional part where when you said it out, the only thing that popped in my head was back of the bus.
Yeah.
And it was immediate. And I just, as a teacher / person, I don't think that should have happened to the child, period. But I think the teacher should have been much more aware of saying what she did.
Yeah. I agree with you completely.
I mean, completely and truly, I would have either gone to the child very quietly and said, we need to calm down in the hallway. Is everything okay? And if she just couldn't, I'd actually ask her if she wants to walk with me.
Right.
I mean, just that simple change can help.
Right.
And that's a universal for children, I believe. As far as the proctor, I mean, oh my gosh.
I mean, and so I think you really answered the question for me in a way that my husband had not, because I think when I think about what you just said, that's pretty powerful. That you would go get the child and walk hand in hand, hold her hand, whatever. We would care enough to look into her background and see whether she has some history of mental or psychological.
Right. And it may just be a child who's having a rough day, or ate 5 Dunkin' Donuts before they came and are jumpy. Who knows? And a lot of times in those situations in school, you don't have the time to have a full conversation with the child. You got to go to the gym class, you got to get back from the gym class, something like that. But I think just being a human being to the child, there's no reason for penalty for that. I mean, if one of my students is doing something completely inappropriate for school, I'd probably address it a little bit differently. But fidgeting and dancing around in line and stuff like that, that's just what's going on. And, you take the actions that you can, and then when you're back in the classroom, that's when you have the conversation.
Right.
And it can be more private when you get in the classroom, because the students have a lot more places to go.
And more importantly, I think the problem is how we see ourselves. I'm 61 years old. I've been an IT technologist, for lack of a better word, for more than 44 years. And I can't tell you how, even today, I experience microaggressions. I've been called names. I have all these different things that run through my mind. And my husband is always telling me about self-esteem. In order to have self-esteem, you have to have someone else have confidence or belief in you or trust you, and so
yes.
For young kids, if a teacher, regardless of color, race, gender, whatever it is, takes a genuine interest in their well-being. So let's just say little Johnny comes in the class on Monday, the teacher takes time out to acknowledge him, encourage him. If he's not performing academically as all the others, you partner that student with the smarter student in that class and let them form a bond, which helps him to grow. Because if you constantly call him out, it's going to do nothing but destroy him. And
no.
We're going to have crime and all kinds of other things that we don't know.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
At the age that I teach, you don't get crying most of the time. You get outbursts and really and truly throwing chairs, throwing desks, going after other kids, things like that. And I learned my absolute favorite coworker, other than Skip, this woman named Mary Knight, and she told me that you give the child that whatever you're doing, you give, and that child is misbehaving or not following directions or something like that, you give the child, before you even say anything about the misdirection, something along the lines of, I understand something's going on. I can see. What is going on to have this happen?
Right.
As opposed to, stop flipping the desks and I'm going to call for support. Yeah, I mean, just the first step is just so important. And especially kids, in the school I work with, these children are coming to school having hadn't eaten since lunch the day before. They are coming to school with a family that's been struggling. They are coming to school seeing violence in the street right in front of their house.
Right.
So these things, I mean, I've had a child say, just something set him off. And, I asked him, I said, it looks like something's upsetting you or something's going on, what is it? And let me help with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And he said that the night before, his father had been arrested in the house
Right.
for having a gun, or it was something about a gun. I can't remember exactly. And I thought, well, no, you're not ready to come to school.
Right.
You're not ready to do any of these, sit in your seat, be at school, conform completely. How can you do that with that much on your mind? And especially at a child, they don't always know what the background is exactly, or can't process like an adult can a situation that happens. And so, yeah, dear sweet Mary Knight, who I think is just, she's on my pedestal forever, always said, say something comforting if you can, and acknowledge the fact that there's something going on with that child way beyond the throwing the chair. It's something way beyond that. The other thing she told me too was, for children that we find very challenging in class, that you should tally how many times you say their name before, kind of across the room or something like that. She said, just tally it and you'll notice you say that child's name way too many times. So you have to make that special effort of, something's going on, they're not behaving correctly, but you address that child quietly and respect that child so that they don't hear their name, and their peers don't hear their name constantly called. Because every child can walk into any classroom and say, that's the worst behaved kid. Right. And you ask, and many of the children will say, because my teacher's yelling at him all day.
Right.
Which means those peers have heard this child's name a billion times.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's a label. Then it's a label. And you can't do that.
It reinforces racism. We only have about 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to give you the rest of the time to say something. One of the things that I've always encouraged Skip to do, and I tell other teachers is this, and I don't care what color the race of the child is, I would say that gender matters more. Girls can sit still and be still. Boys can't. So give them a stress toy or something they can have in their hand while they're reading or writing that take away that desire to pop up, jump up. So the rest of the time is yours.
So in that, and I've noticed that no matter where I've taught, the boys struggle more than the girls do to sit down. Although I've had a lot of girls who've also kind of been fidgety and stuff like that. And maybe this is my white privilege speaking, but I've always said, just like you said, there has to be something to physically let the child move. And I offer it to all the children, whatever the situation, and boys and girls. Every single desk of mine has, it looks pretty weird, but like a bungee cord with a pool noodle on it, and they can just push on it and push on it. And after about a week, you get used to the noise. You don't hear it anymore. And that's on all of my desks. I'm very lucky now. There's the school that I'm at now had a renovation a couple years ago. So they got all new furniture. And they have these chairs that do kind of rock without tipping the actual chair. I love it. I absolutely love them. And there is never a time where I tell a child to stop rocking. I'm like, if you need to, I know when I stand at the board and doing something and maybe weeding for children or doing something, I move, so if I move, of course these kids have to move. And just simple things. Like I have in every, it has to be the corner only because that's the way the room is and I can't, anyway. And I would be spoken to if I had it in the middle of the room. But like beanbag chairs with a timer and a thing to do. And there's a short piece of paper, like a half a piece of paper, that it's just very simple. I chose to leave the group because this is what I'm hoping can happen while I'm here. That kind, like I can calm down, or I can stop thinking about something, or I can, whatever it is. And it's all open-ended. I don't put like a little line in a sentence. But those kinds of things are just
hard.
I found teaching in different socioeconomic areas and teaching classes that are all Black and brown children versus more diverse classes. I have found that allowing children in the schools that are completely Black and brown, that can't think of the right word, that they can self-choose to pull out for a minute, or they can self-choose, something like that. I think it empowers them in a small way. They can recognize for themselves, and I think they learn to recognize for themselves when something is going on for them, and able to go to a place that's calm and there's something to do, and it's very like that. The only rule I have for that area is you can't turn your back to the classroom. That's the only rule I have. And that's only because when administration comes in and they see 4 or 5 kids with their back turned to the class, they're like, are you teaching? That kind of thing. So it's really a rule to kind of keep me out of trouble more than anything else.
Yeah. I will send you a converted copy of this chat so you can see if you'll approve for me to upload. But
okay.
But I also hope you will talk with me again soon, because
I would love to.
Hearing your words and hearing you talk, I think a lot of other teachers that are not Black and brown need to hear what you've said, because I think this is very, very, very powerful conversation, because I think you've given us some tools, you explained something to us that's been very, very helpful. So as soon as the video converts, I will send it to you. You can tell me whether you approve it. Tell me sometimes in late July we can do this again.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thanks. Thank you. Have a great day.